don't put too much stress on your first kiss. It'll happen, but like it gets better, more funnier, and like
Yeah. And it only gets magical if you're actually in love with the person, like later on
yeah,
after you've
yeah,
kissed them a lot. But yeah,
yeah.
usually the first
That's
kiss.
true. I prefer women, but I want a guy to force himself on me. I am open to trans women doing the same, but I don't see too many of them wanting. Oh, some of them do like work off the side because like some of them are actually sex workers. So like there's never a shortage for someone to take a nice 40-year-old hairy man aside and take him. just really take him.
Is one last kiss, but she won't let me have it. I want to get over her, but I can't. I need help. Hey, this is Morgan Rector. Join me and my co-host Rosanna Chilton for the Confession Post podcast. ConfessionPost.com is a website where users post highly personal content anonymously for the reading pleasure of other users. On this podcast, Rosanna and I read confessions from the site and give our analysis. You can listen to the Confession Post podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Thank you. Hey y'all, Morgan Rector here. Do you have an idea for a podcast? Furthermore, would you like to host and co-produce your own podcast? I am always looking to expand the portfolio of my company, Leader One Podcast Network. If you would like to have your own show, send me an email and we can talk about it. Aside from politics and religion, I'm open to just about any topic. If you are passionate, knowledgeable, and articulate, I want to talk to you. You can contact me by email, morgansvariety@gmail.com. I hope to hear from you soon. Hey, Morgan Rector here. I'm just dropping a line to say thank you to all of my Patreon donors. Since I'm not a Joe Rogan or Mark Maron, podcasting is more or less a starving artist gig for guys like me. Patreon donations keep me from having to take a job that would take away from my ability to generate more Human Monsters content. The website URL for Patreon is www.patreon, that's spelled patreon.com/leader, O-N-E, Leader One. A way to make a one-time donation is to send it through PayPal at Morgan Rector 331, Rector spelled R-E-C-T-O-R, at hotmail.com, morganrector331 at hotmail.com. You don't have to give a large amount of money if it isn't possible. If $1 a month or $1 one time is the best you can pony up, it would be gratefully accepted. I know how hard things are for everybody during COVID. Thank you for all the support you have given the show, whether it is through financial donations or simply by listening. I am grateful for all you have given to me and the program. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Children of the Void. We are your hosts, Rachel Telfor
and Michelle Gower.
Today, we will be focusing on a Northeast Ohio case. It's the most revisited cold case file in this part of Ohio.
So join us as we prepare to enter the void. All right. So this week we are discussing Amy Mihaljevic. So just to lead off, we're going to give you a little backstory. Very little.
And before you go into it, so why, Michelle, did you choose this case to go over this week?
I actually first heard about this case through a TV show on Investigation Discovery. I believe it was People Magazine Investigates, and they discussed Amy's disappearance. I'm not originally from Ohio, but this was a very prominent case that a lot of people from Ohio know about, whether or not you were born or, a young child at the time of the case. It's one of those things that people know about.
Right.
It's
kind of like our Casey Anthony, maybe on
correct.
a smaller scale.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it
I
was.
gotcha.
Well, and the thing that's weird about this case is it kind of spans a nice chunk of the state.
Okay.
So as I get further into the details of what occurred, it'll make sense. And the more I researched it, the closer to home it actually hit for where I live, which was kind of weird. So
wow. All right.
makes
Well,
you think.
I'm looking forward to hearing about it. So dig in.
All right. So Amy Renee Mihaljevic was born on December 11th, 1978 in Little Rock, Arkansas. Her family later moved to Bay Village, Ohio, which is outside of Cleveland. It's a suburb, which is at the northern part of the state.
Okay.
She was described as a bright, bubbly student and was an avid lover of horses. So fast forward to October 27th, 1989. Amy, who at the time was in 5th grade, told a friend at lunch that a man who worked with her mom had called her recently, and she was excited because he was going to take her to a local shopping plaza to purchase a gift for her mom. This guy who called explained that her mom had gotten a recent promotion at work and wanted to surprise her. So he knew that, obviously Amy loves her mom. Go get a present. It's going to be a big deal.
So this was a guy who just worked with mom, not necessarily a friend, or
he alleged he worked with her mom.
Okay. All right. So, but he called her.
He called Amy at home on her home telephone.
Gotcha.
And explained to her that he worked with her mom.
So mom didn't know.
Nope. This was supposed to be a surprise.
Understood. Got it.
And he was like, okay, if we meet at this local shopping plaza, I'll take you to a bigger mall. We'll go get your mom a special present. He was going to drive her, take care of all that. And
I immediately hate this. I immediately hate all of this.
Yes. It's
oh my God.
It's terrifying.
Okay.
So the man abducts her. And eventually, people had seen her with a man in this Bay Village shopping plaza, but later explained to the police that they thought it was her dad. So there was no red flags. The thing that's really crazy, though, is this shopping plaza where she was technically abducted from is literally across the street from the local police station.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
So, and the day in question when she was getting abducted, the majority of the police officers were on site, but it was for a photo for the police department. So they weren't necessarily readily available.
So they were at the police station across the street.
It was like a perfect storm of crazy. They were tied up with their own stuff. Allegedly, according to some research and investigation, there was like maybe one police officer who was not on duty that day. But the majority of them were there. They were doing this group photo scenario. Amy goes missing, so.
Okay. So
Amy's last
she's
seen
in
at this
5th grade.
How old was she's like 10 years old.
Okay.
10.
Okay.
So old enough to know, they had literally explained in some reports that earlier in the day before her lunch, someone came to the school to kind of warn about stranger danger. It's a very ironic, kind of crazy scenario.
Lots of
weird
scenarios here.
Yeah. So Amy meets up with this guy at the shopping plaza. She's last seen with him. He's very, normal looking. People eventually did composite sketches of him, but locally nobody actually recognized who this person was. There was some speculation later on I'll get into, but it was never, he was basically a stranger.
Gotcha.
So Amy had a routine with her mom because her mom worked. She was essentially a latchkey kid. Mm-hmm. Her and her brother, they would come home from school between 3 and 3:30, and she would always call her mom to let her know she got home.
Sounds like our childhood in the 80s.
Yes. Exactly. So this day in general, she was not home on time, and her older brother got home before she did. So he called her mom, their mom, to let her know Amy wasn't home. And initially, her mom was not concerned because Amy had told her she was auditioning for a choir group or a choral group. Now, I don't know offhand if this was a ploy to go shopping with the guy that Amy had told her mom, or if this was something that actually happened. But whatever the case was, mom was not concerned that she was not home on time.
Wow.
So,
is that your thought? Or was that in the investigation somewhere?
No, this is my thought. This is my
okay. All right, girl.
So, because knowing how I would be if I was going to lie to my parents, make it something.
Have to have a good reason.
You know, we all were teenagers at one point. But so 3 o'clock rolls around. Brother's concerned, calls mom. She's not too concerned. 3:30, he calls her again because he's like, Amy's still not here. Okay. So at 3:40, so 10 minutes later, after the second time her brother calls, her mom gets a call from Amy.
Okay.
Now, red flags immediately go up because the mom explains later that, she answered my questions with one word, responses like, yes, okay, I'm fine. She's like, that was not like her. Her mom's name is Margaret. She's like, Margaret said she was a little chitter chatterbox. So essentially, Amy's like a young version of me. Doesn't stop talking.
I was just going to say, is it like us calling and giving one word? Okay.
Yes.
I have goosebumps right now. I literally have goosebumps thinking about this. Okay.
So she immediately figures out something's not right. Her mom rushes home. Amy's still not at the house. She drives to the school and she finds Amy's bike still locked in the bike rack.
Oh my God, my stomach.
So she immediately goes over to the police department to report her abduction. Okay. So essentially her brother looking out for her kind of kickstarted this investigation because he was so adamant, like something's not right.
Thank God.
So it kind of, so this is about 4 o'clock when all this starts going down. By 7 o'clock, the police are involved in an initial search for Amy, but it doesn't turn up anything.
So initial search being, do you know, was it just around the shopping center?
Canvassing all local areas where they thought she would be. Her local neighborhoods, areas around the school and in between, places that they knew she could possibly go to within a reasonable distance around her house. Correct. They had no reason to think that she would have gone elsewhere, so it started as a basic search.
Okay.
Her dad comes home completely unaware of everything going on. He was not informed because he was at work, so he gets home around 6 o'clock. So he gets
my God.
By 7, like I said, by 7 o'clock, the initial search goes around. Nothing comes of it. By the following morning, because this happened on a Friday. So by Saturday morning, the FBI gets involved. Police, FBI, everyone's all over the house and the property. Other young girls eventually had come forward when they started asking people questions, and they had explained that they had also received phone calls from a mysterious stranger around the same time Amy was receiving these calls, getting a similar story.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So this isn't an isolated incident. This just happens to be the successful abduction.
Oh my God. So, and I want to go back and think. I was born in 80. I'm not ashamed of that. So back in this time, you said something that just hit me. Dad didn't know until he got home from work.
Yeah.
This is a time before cell phones.
Yep.
Before that technology.
Yep.
Like when you had to hear of stuff, probably on the news before you even get to know.
Right.
Which is so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And the lack of the time it takes to get that information out was a lot, took a lot more time, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is heavy, so, Michelle.
It's very intense and very terrifying.
Okay.
So again, this happened on October 27th in 1989.
Okay.
So she goes missing. She's not to be found. No one has any real leads as to what happened. So fast forward to February 8th, 1990.
So October,
Amy's
November,
body,
December, January. That's 4 months.
Correct. So in February, Amy's body is found in a wheat field in Ruggles Township, which is in Ashland County. Ashland County is 50 miles south from Cleveland. So it's actually not too far from where I live.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Quite a trip.
Okay.
The Cuyahoga County coroner had confirmed that Amy had been deceased for some time when her body was recovered. She was most likely killed a few days after her abduction. She was still wearing the clothes that she went missing in. She had been forcefully struck on the head and stabbed twice in the neck.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It also appeared that the killer took several souvenirs from her. She was missing some girls' horse riding boots that she had been wearing, a denim backpack, a binder with Buick Best in Class written on the front clasp representing a horse, and turquoise earrings in the shape of horse heads that she was
Oh my
seeing.
God. Okay, well, rip my heart out, please.
Yeah. So, huge, terrifying ordeal. And crazy
Was
enough
this a rural place? Do you know if the place?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the area she was found is off of a bunch. So Ruggles Township and Ashland County in general is a lot of farmland,
Mhm.
and especially at that time, it was even less developed. So a lot of these roads that, there's few and far between as far as homes.
Dirt
There's
roads, kind of.
Yeah, dirt roads or even paved roads that just don't get traveled on a lot. They're not main highways. These are just byways and,
Yeah,
kind of back road scenarios. So
I understand
it was a huge shock and that area, Ashland County, does not get a lot of crime. So when stuff happens, it's even more of a big deal because it's such a quiet area usually.
right, small town.
Like you hear more about talk of Bigfoot sightings out there than you do about murder. I'm not even
I can
kidding.
imagine.
So
No, I understand.
Yeah, so middle of nowhere country. So yeah, her body's found 4 months later. So everything kind of goes cold. They get tips, they get leads, they do investigating, nothing ever pans of it. Here's where it starts to get a little crazy.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2016.
So we're talking about this. So this is a cold case.
Yes. Case
By
goes
now.
cold.
They have nothing.
But,
They've brought
yeah,
nothing.
The case goes cold, but the people involved are so touched by the scenario, they don't give up on it. So they leave it an active case.
So, okay, so it wasn't an active case since
was
1990.
active, but they just had no leads. So yeah, technically
Understood.
did go cold, but it was never, closed out. They had hope that they were going to find this killer.
Okay.
So in 2016, a blanket and a curtain that were found near Amy's dump site had evidence of gold fibers and DNA on it.
Wait, so they had they got the blanket and the curtain from 1990, correct? They just had it in evidence?
I couldn't find out for sure. The way it was said, 2016 was new evidence appeared. So I don't know if someone went back and canvassed the area and found this, but it happened to have her DNA on it. It was kind of crazy.
Okay.
I read numerous sources. It was a little bit confusing, so I apologize to our listeners if it's a little scattered.
Okay.
Now,
all right, here we go. Wait. Recent scientific testing
okay, so yeah.
revealed that the curtain found about 1,000 feet from the child's body had hairs on it. Oh, that's hairs.
Yeah. They had hairs from at least 3 different individuals on that blanket or the curtain.
So, okay, yes. So the curtain, they did have the curtain, but I think they just had, because I didn't read your case files, but I wanted to know a little bit about it. And this is the Cuyahoga County officer of the prosecutor's website, actually. Okay, continue. I'm freaking out right now.
So they also had evidence of gold fibers.
Okay.
Because again, there was a blanket and a curtain found that had DNA evidence and these fibers.
Gold fibers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, fast forward a couple of years, there was a newly filed court record explaining that police were working a new lead in the case back in January of 2019. A woman came forward who was, identifying her ex-boyfriend as a potential suspect in Amy's murder. The woman explained to the police that they lived less than a mile and a half from the shopping plaza in Bay Village where she went missing, and that the night Amy disappeared, granted this was 1990, 1989, he did not come home, and she did get a phone call he asked her if she heard the news about Amy's disappearance on the TV.
And she's calling in 2019 to tell people this?
Yes. So
why?
There's more.
Okay.
There's more.
Oh.
So then the gold fibers that were found on Amy's body matched the interior of the vehicle the man was driving at the time of her disappearance. This man's car. So her body's found, right? They tape off the crime scene. The police were requested to take down the license plates and make and vehicle of cars that were in the area at the time. This guy's car was seen driving past the crime scene numerous times, and they took his plate and ID info. This was 50 miles south of where he lived. They could not figure out why he would be down there. He had no business being down there. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm gonna.
So he's even ID'd being near the crime scene in Ashland County after her body was discovered.
So now I'm gonna have to blame a little bit at this point on the police.
Well, here's the thing. So
okay, I'll let you continue.
Initially, I was like that too.
Okay.
But there's multiple speculations and ways to go about this. You kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Okay.
So I was doing some digging and got in touch with an author and private investigator named James Renner, who is an individual who lives here in Ohio. Mm-hmm. And has been extensively investigating this case as long as others. He's a huge crime enthusiast and has, been in touch with numerous police departments. I mean, this is his passion, is solving these unsolved murders. So when this information came about this woman, pointing the finger at the ex-boyfriend, who I couldn't find his name because obviously it's innocent till proven guilty. They weren't going to release information unnecessarily. They explained that this man, who is now in his 60s, was eventually questioned and did make suspicious comments, explaining that, at the time of her disappearance, it could be possible that his DNA would be found on a curtain near her body. And it was possible she could have been in his car, but he didn't know exactly why. And at the time of Amy's murder, he didn't remember much.
Well, it was a long time ago.
Time of his life. He said he was going through some stuff.
Oh.
So he's like, well, she could have been in my car, but I mean, I wouldn't know why.
Skirt, what? I'm sorry,
yeah.
What?
Yes,
sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
No, that is not okay. That is very, very suspicious activity. No.
It's bananas. So it got to the point that he was found to have had storage units in his name, and the police did manage to get warrants to search and seize evidence from the storage units, but because it's an ongoing investigation, we don't have access to any of that information. Now, again, James Renner was privy to this information, and, he's covered Amy's case, and with this information, he did explain that a reason for the tip coming out 30 years later means that it may have more weight to it than what the public is knowing, and the man being investigated hasn't been named due to innocent until proven guilty. Renner feels the unnamed suspect may have already been named in police records from the time of Amy's disappearance, and it was further found that he had nieces who attended Amy's school and were in the same grade as her, and his family also was in Bay Village, not far from where she was at. So he has ties to her area, the crime scene, and then at one point I think he had family living down there as well. So he has ties to both locations.
What I'm hearing right now, they may or may not have known or had this man suspected for a very long time and then just got DNA evidence to possibly prove it. And they're not saying shit.
Well, here's
to build that case.
And this is what Renner goes on to explain as well. He does explain how easy it would have been in the early 90s for an individual to stalk Amy, essentially, find out where she lives, look up her information in the phone book.
Latchkey parent.
Yes, he would know all the details. But he also explained, if the DNA did connect the suspect to the crime, an arrest would have been made. So I don't know if maybe they found something that would implicate him in another crime, and that's why. I don't know. It's all up in the air. And that's what makes this case so crazy. There's so many twists and turns, and it's like just when you think you know what's going on, they flip it on its head.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm on a roller coaster right now.
That's the most recent suspect in this case.
Okay.
So that, like I said, this happened 2019 is when this guy got implicated, and his ex-girlfriend's like, hey, all this weird stuff is kind of culminating, and and everyone thinks that she decided to rat on him now because maybe, she was getting something out of him.
And are we thinking that this guy is the same guy that called her? Obviously.
That
we don't. Is there any?
We don't know. Okay. If he is the kidnapper, that could be a possibility. However, here's another possibility. Another potential lead involved a local science center that Amy and other students have visited prior to her abduction. So the thing about this is there was a logbook near the entrance for visitors to sign where kids could write their name and their numbers. And they think that someone involved in the local science center might have gotten hold of this logbook knowing these children were there and were using it to contact the kids about the parents. Now, the thing that's weird about the phone calls that the kids got, they were all very similar. However, some of those kids had numbers that weren't listed in the phone book. So
Interesting.
How did they get those phone numbers?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So another suspect or a possible suspect that Renner touches base on, he has podcasts, blogs, all sorts of stuff. He explained another suspect included a prior teacher who goes by Mr. Runkle, who was in the Bay Village area. He eventually resigned prior to a state law change that would have required teachers to submit fingerprints.
Interesting.
So, yeah. He was also a regular volunteer at the science center that Amy visited.
Wow. Okay, those are two.
Other students from the school who had Runkle as a teacher would explain about he had very inappropriate behavior, making comments about girls' dresses and appearances, creepy touching on the shoulders, just things that definitely were red flags as adults when they look back at what happened as children. You may not have seen it that way then, but it definitely wasn't right.
Right.
The pictures of Mr. Runkle actually kind of look similar to the composite sketches of the abductor.
Really?
Yes.
I'll have to look that up. And Runkle, I don't want to be stupid, but God, that sounds like a crappy person. Runkle.
It's weird. This is just a weird case. And the more I read it, I was like, what is happening? Because this isn't one that I can do a papo on because there's just too much.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed.
So, and then there's yet another speculation about what happened to her. So someone wanted to tie in the fact that multiple different hairs from 3 separate people were found on Amy's body. Okay. And it led some people to believe that Amy could have been a victim of a pedophile ring. So in the late 70s, in Detroit, area in Michigan, someone was abducting children about between 10 and 12 years old. 2 of them were boys, 2 of them were girls. And that has been definitively linked to a ring of pedophiles. Wow. And they were a bunch of creepy guys who were operating out of a bicycle shop basement. So they had this
in the area
in Michigan.
Okay, but close, but very close.
Close enough that it's kind of weird. So they were wondering, they explained that they would take these kids, do really horrible, fucked up things to them. One of the guys was named Ted Lamborghini. He's in prison right now up in Michigan for his role in these crimes, but, he had been arrested, I believe, and pulled over in Ohio. So they're wondering if maybe they were transporting people across state lines. Did they set up a new shop of pedophile, goings on in Ohio? Unfortunately, especially northern Ohio, Toledo area is very notorious for human trafficking. It's very dangerous up there.
Right. And I don't want to say, because obviously you have a couple different ideas here of what could have happened. Right. The reason why that one doesn't make as much sense to me is why would they kill her? She's not gonna. If I know that's a horrible way to think. Right. But if you're running a child sex ring, you wouldn't kill the child. Yeah. I'm literally the worst person, but I do true crime news all day. So that's where my mind goes. Oh God, this is horrible.
Yeah. So there's a lot of information to unpack. Thousands of leads and countless man hours have been poured into this case. The case remains active to this day. Hundreds of promising tips have been tracked down and dismissed. 14,000 people have been interviewed. 120 potential suspects have been investigated and questioned intensely. That's a lot. 8,000 leads have been pursued and abandoned. This story and pictures were featured in major newspapers and national TV shows like America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries. And then 2 million copies of Amy Mihaljevic's missing poster were distributed. All 50 states had information and pictures, billboards, and even as far as Europe and Australia had information. Wow. But even with everything going on, Amy's murderer is still at large to this day.
That's horrifying. Horrifying. Okay,
and it just
so
makes it's a heavy, crazy.
Recently, June 20. So this is on Wednesday, June 22nd. I'm assuming, when was this published? I'm looking that this was this year. So maybe I'm wrong, because it says officials from the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, Bay Village Police Department, and the FBI held a press conference to ask for the public's help with new evidence discovered in the 1989 murder. Officials showed what appears to be a homemade curtain found in the same wheat field where Amy's body was discovered in February 1990. So it really is unclear if they just found it or if they had it.
Right.
I'm so confused.
I want to say the blanket was nearby at the time, and then the curtain was later found. But
yes, that's what it seems. And then it says recent scientific testing revealed that the curtain found about 1,000 feet from the child's body had hairs on it matching those of the Mihaljevic family's dog.
Yeah.
Thank you. The family dog. And believe that dog hair from Amy's clothing was transferred to this curtain, and that the curtain came from the site where the homicide took place.
Right, implicating that she would have been wrapped in the curtain in order for her animal's DNA to get on it.
Exactly. It says we know they know where Amy was abducted, and we know where she was found, and that this piece of evidence could tell us where she was killed and help us find the person who killed her. And there actually is still a $50,000 reward for information that leads to the capture of her killer.
Yeah. Some of the detectives who were on the case have retired from the force, but are still active in searching for her killer this day.
Oh my God, I love that. Bless the detectives.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a heavy case. I don't even know where to pick this apart.
Right.
I'm hoping that this latest information, and this is pretty recent, so that's very promising. Although that was June, it's October. But to keep it relevant, to keep talking about it, to keep it out there is the best thing to do. Because look at how long it took for somebody to come forward to say something in the first place, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah. There's somebody out there.
And that's something that, James Renner, the FBI, everyone involved, even Amy's father, have gone on TV and are like, if anybody knows anything, even as, something you might consider a small, possibly insignificant something or other piece of information, call it in.
Anything that you think that would be pertinent, for sure.
Yeah, no tip is too small, especially when it involves either a missing person or a murder case, and one that's as old as this one. Time affects everything, and the conditions in which she would have found her body. February in Ohio is not forgiving. It's usually snowy, it's cold. Who's to say, because it's an active case, we don't know the condition of the body when it was found.
No. And I'm sure, Michelle, I picture my 10-year-old son, and losing my child at that age and never having closure is absolutely heartbreaking. So,
and to know that it was over the fact that she was trying to go buy a gift for her mom.
It's just heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
It's terrifying to think of what occurs nowadays, too, with child abductions because of social media and catfishing. And, I mean, how much easier it is. Like, this guy was methodical. To go to the lengths to make up this kind of a story and to trick a child the way he did, it's diabolical.
Absolutely. It's the worst of the worst.
Right. And it's one of those things like, how could someone live with themselves knowing that this happened?
Psychopaths.
Yeah, but if you don't have that psychopathic mind, it's like, how do you sleep at night?
Yeah, I'm still confused about how it took the girlfriend that long to call in.
I'm wondering if maybe she was involved in some shady stuff with this ex-boyfriend, and something went wrong, because so she decided to get him in trouble.
Absolutely. There's something very, very fishy about that. That would be a huge red flag for me. I'm sorry, ma'am. This happened in 1989 and 1996. You're all of a sudden going to come and say that Oh, I remember this.
2016. It was like almost 30 years later. Like, I'm sorry, I can barely remember what I had for lunch last week.
Thank you.
How the hell?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I do want to put it out there. Any tips, you can always call 1-800 call FBI. And I'm sure that's for any national missing child's case. You can't forget that number. So.
And for those who obviously, the internet is our friend. If you want to submit an anonymous tip online, you can go to tips.fbi.gov and give them any information you have.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Thank you. I think this was a really hard story. Well, but I appreciate you bringing it to light, though. It's something that I've never heard about and that's still unsolved. And that's kind of what we are trying to do, right?
There's numerous radio programs, podcasts, news reports, online information, all covering Amy Mihaljevic's disappearance, as well as updates. I mean, even the FBI website still has her as an active case and shows her missing poster.
Oh my gosh, how heartbreaking!
It's tough.
She's a child in the void.
She is. Yeah. And it's just as sad when they go missing and you never hear from them again, and then when you find the body, to know that the killer's still out there. And who knows where they are, that
I wonder,
it strikes a nerve.
I wonder if I would rather have my child's killer and not know where my child is, or find my child's body, be able to lay it to rest and not ever find the killer. Wow. Let's not think about that.
Would you rather I'd even
money. Let's not. Yeah, nope, me either. I'm all set with that.
So
I'll do both. Let's never have this happen.
It just makes you wonder too, if like this happened in other states. Was this a traveling guy? Is this something he only did locally? Who did it? Who did it? And where are they now?
It also sounds like somebody that this wasn't their first time. So you're correct. If we find this person and the DNA matches other cases.
It's too methodical. There was too much, this wasn't necessarily a random abduction. This guy put effort into figuring out her contact information.
Yeah.
And calling
He took time. It wasn't just a spur of the moment, I'm going to grab this kid off the side of the road. It took time.
It wasn't a free candy van. This was a guy who attempted to, kidnap other kids too. And to think that these kids, I don't know how I would feel if I was one of those children who answered that phone call and was like, no, thanks, and hung up, only to realize later that this motherfucker could have killed you.
And that somebody else lost their life. Yeah.
Yes. And someone else, unfortunately, was too trusting.
That's a heavy thought. Yeah. It's so many lives were affected.
Yeah.
So many. Think of how many lives were affected by this.
Well, and child. I know this author, James Renner, he became obsessed when he started hearing about this on the news, and he would even go out, almost every night and would bicycle around and try and find information. And
yep. A lot of lives. And that's what people don't understand. Well, or maybe they do. Every loss, no matter how big or small or how publicized or not, doesn't just affect the immediate family. It affects the officers who investigate it, the detectives, the people, the bystanders, the people that, maybe didn't answer the phone. It affects so many people who might be looking for closure and still feeling unsafe because this person is still out there.
Right. I couldn't imagine being a child, especially like a classmate of hers, growing up in that time, knowing that she went missing and then she was found dead.
Right.
And knowing that you're not safe.
Right.
Even in your own home. You don't know who's answering the phone. You don't know who could be that potential knock at the door.
Yeah, it took away those children's innocence because they thought that, oh, wow, if this could happen at 10.
And then the composite sketch, he looks like a basic ass white dude.
Yeah. Just looks like a pillar of the community.
And that's the thing. Monsters, hide in the shadows. And
absolutely.
You think they're going to look like these hideous, demonic psychopaths like we see on horror movies and TV shows, and they don't. They look like Ned Flanders. They look like your neighbor next door.
Ned Flanders. But there was a statistic. I can't pull it up right now because I have 15 screens open, but how many times in your lifetime that you pass a serial killer or pass a murderer that you would never know.
I believe it's like
everybody else.
At least 6 times.
It's way too many for me.
It is. It's terrifying.
Which is why I trust no one and stay in my house.
Keep your doors locked. Stay safe.
Yes.
Know your surroundings.
Correct.
And there's plenty of, and the thing with technology is I'm just very hopeful that, especially with DNA testing and, profiling, that has come leaps and bounds since the 90s. And granted, it still does take a lot of time to get that information, but at least it's out there.
And it's growing and it's getting better. It's changing. Are you not? So I get so excited when I see these breakthroughs in DNA evidence. It's one of the things that I'm most obsessed with in true crime, because especially lately in Paul Holes, with the what was the killer he broke after 30 years? Why do I always forget his name?
That's the Golden State.
Yes. And that whole lineage of DNA family testing that he kind of brought forward. And they are solving all these cold cases.
Yeah. I'm hoping that.
Yes. Yeah. So that's, I want it to happen. I want to hear all of the breaks, all of the people that are being brought to justice. I did put my DNA in, and I did open it up to be put in the system. I mean, if I can help, hopefully none of my relatives have committed any horrific crimes, but you never know.
Right.
A 7th or 8th distant cousin or something like that. If my DNA can help solve a crime, hell yeah, I'm doing it.
You never know. And I mean, modern technology is getting better every day. Our cell phones, as much as they have tracking on them, that kind of stuff can make or break finding even a body nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, imagine what it would have done in this case.
Well, and different companies now make they're I'm trying to think of the word. They're like essentially an Apple Watch for children. It's like a children's watch that's connected, so parents can log into their app and track their kids. They can even tune into the child's watch, because you can make phone calls on it, and they can privately listen in on the child's conversation without them knowing.
Oh, wow.
And then the kids have limited contacts. So you can put 3 to 5 contacts in these and, call mom, dad, police, grandma, that kind of stuff. And they can only receive calls from specific numbers. So there's things out there now that can definitely help prevent things like this from happening, on top of the basic self-defense things, pepper spray, tasers, the keychains that emit the high-pitched shrieking noises.
Physical self-defense, taekwondo.
Classes.
Or just please have the conversation with your children. Talking and having an open dialogue is the most important thing. And my son comes to me, and Michelle, you're not quite there yet, but girl, give it a couple of years and you're going to be having the same conversation. Mom, why can't I have TikTok? Buddy, it's not that I don't trust you on TikTok. I don't trust every single other person on TikTok.
Right.
So I have to explain that to him, because he's like, and don't just say because I said so. I'm like, I'm never going to say that to you. I'm going to tell you why. Because there are crazy people out there.
Everywhere.
And you don't know who they are. So
do we even truly know who our neighbors are anymore?
No.
Exactly. So stranger
Safety.
danger is always been a prevalent, serious situation.
Rather be safe than sorry when it comes to our kids, for sure.
Right.
Yep.
Because we can't afford to have these kinds of scenarios keep happening. No. Amy deserves justice. She always has.
That sweet little baby does just. Yes, I agree. I thank you so much for covering this case. It was a doozy.
Right. So many questions left unanswered, but there's not we could speculate all day. It's not going to get us anywhere.
But that's what we do on this podcast, is talk about it, bring it to light. Again, somebody may be listening, or somebody who knows something may be listening one day, and we put it out there. So that's what we want to do.
Definitely.
I'm going to give a special. Amy be forgotten.
Never. I'm going to give a special shout out to James Renner for information he shared via Facebook with me, giving me links to his podcasts, his blogs, all of his crime information. Much love to him. Again, if you guys, our listeners, have any information or want us to look into any unsolved cases, definitely reach out to us.
Please.
And, until next time, we appreciate you.
Yes, watch your kids. Make all the good safety decisions for them. Let's keep the children out of the void.
Yes. And until next time, we will be here.
Yep.
Again, my name is Michelle Gower. Almost called by my maiden name. Good Lord.
That was a great one. Don't make me laugh. Well, actually, I needed a laugh after that heavy episode. So go ahead and sign off again, my love.
Yeah. My married name is Michelle Gower.
And I am Rachel Telfor, and thank you so much for joining us on Children of the Void.
Stay safe.